Have you ever had anybody tell you that they can't afford the Mannatech products? That is not in the budget, and in this economy, it's just too much. Well, once I understand the tax consequences of starting a home-based business and how, in my case, it dropped my income taxes about 40%, and why that happens and why that works, they can't afford not to have a home-based business. Um, it's it's really an amazing thing um, when people don't even understand the rudimentary aspects of taxation. As I had mentioned earlier, I had a fellow that told me that he hadn't paid any taxes. In fact, he got a $1,200 refund. And I explained that he paid plenty of taxes. And in fact, divided by 12 months, that's $100 in excess taxes that he'd been paying that was refunded without any interest or penalties, which was a horrible way of investing his money for a whole year, letting the government use it and not even pay for its use. So he needed to go and change his W-4 back to how it used to be. Um, this is a 2007 copy, but not much changes year to year except maybe the date. And we got, if you filled it out when you got hired. When I had a job, I filled out the W-4 so my employer would know how much to withhold, how much to take out of each paycheck to, send in toward the taxes that I anticipated owing. And yet this guy was off by $100 a month. Now what's interesting is when you start a home-based business, it's the equivalent of 4 additional exemptions to withholding. And if you use your car in your home-based business, that's another 2 exemptions from withholding. That means they withhold less and less money out of each paycheck. If you take business meals, that's 1. If you take business trips, that's another. If you hire your spouse, that's another 1, and then 1 for each of your kids. So it might be that you could take 8, 10, 12 additional exemptions from withholding and hardly have anything taken out of your paychecks. And really, after all, it's your money. Your employer doesn't care how much you put down. Now, these forms, the W-4 on both sides, is primarily, just worksheets. But this is an estimation that I have fun playing with, because I can slide it up and down and figure out the number. So, I might be playing at lunch, and somebody will say, well, what are you doing? What's that? And I say, well, I'm calculating how much of a pay raise I want to give myself. And they'll say, a pay raise? You can't give yourself a pay raise. What, do you get some kind of a deal with your boss? I said, no, I'm just, because basically you can change your withholding to take into account changes in your financial situation. And if you start a home-based business, when I started a home-based business with Mannatech, I could go back to line 5 on my W-4, and if I had 2 exemptions, maybe for my wife and myself, on line 5, I could simply do another 4, which would bring it to 6. Or if I had none, some of us have none, and I could at least put down 4. And so what that does is, for example, you have your gross monthly wages here, and then you have 1 withholding if you're married or if you're single, and then married and single after you make the changes. So, for example, in this scenario right here, the fellow's making $2,100 a month, and if he's got 1 withholding and he's married, he's going to be losing $200. If he's single, he's going to lose $248. But if he puts 4 more exemptions on his withholding, and you can do that, I could do that the next day. I could go down to my boss the very next day and say, hey, I want a new W-4. And he doesn't give a hoot, because that's between me and the government. On the new W-4, I just put down 4 additional exemptions from withholding because I'm getting serious about Mannatech. And that gives me, well, if I'm married, That gives me, let's see, it looks like $234. And if I'm single, $282. Increase in my take-home pay. And it's kind of like asking a person, if I gave you $100, excuse me, if you gave me $100 and I gave you $235 back, would you want to do that next month? Well, it's a no-brainer. And that's basically what happened with me. I changed my W-4. I got an extra almost $300 in my take-home pay. I could use 100 of that to pay for my Mannatech products every month, and that still left me $200 ahead. Now, in anticipation of the taxes I would owe, since I'm not withholding as much, I have to make that up by legitimate business expenses. And I was more than able to do that. And so starting the next day, I was able to afford to buy these Mannatech products. Now, there are other ways of calculating what your taxes may be. Maybe you have a trust, a family trust or foundation, or you get some dividends. But generally speaking, I felt that starting with just 4, even though I was going to use my car and have business trips and take business meals, and eventually my wife hired me and the kids, and but 4 was very, very conservative, and I suppose you can adjust it. I could adjust it as I went along. But we had some friends in Eagle, Colorado, and she worked for the post office and he worked for the railroad. And he had no interest in building his business. He wasn't interested in the business. He just wanted to see if the products worked. He didn't want to talk to anybody. Just wanted to see if the products worked. So I checked. And the next day, after they enrolled with Mannatech, they went down and they chose to change their W-4. She changed hers at the post office. He changed his at the railroad. And they increased their take-home pay $1,000. And that really changed their life. That was phenomenal. An extra $1,000 a month of their own money. Now, I knew I had 2 or 3 months to prove to them that these products were really working. And every month when I checked in, they were getting better and better results. They were more and more enthusiastic. And finally, I said to the fella, let's hand out, back then we had cassettes. We were using cassettes. I said, let's hand out a couple cassettes just to some of your friends, and they might be interested in the information. No, I don't want to do that. No, I'm not interested. Well, there were a number of things I could say at that point, but I simply said, well, okay, well, I understand. But in that case, you don't have a business, and so you really need to go back tomorrow morning, and you two need to change your W-4s back to how they used to be, because you aren't accumulating any business expenses. And there was a pause, and they said, well, maybe we could hand out a couple cassettes to some of our friends. And because they couldn't remember how they used to live with $1,000 less every month. Even when I was making an extra $300 a month or $400 a month, I didn't want to lose out on that. And so this is Mannatech is very affordable. There's really no financial risk. The products are guaranteed 100%, 6-month, 100% satisfaction. You spend $1,000 a month, 6 months later, you can get it all back if you aren't delighted. And the money that can be made is great. But you can make all the money in the world, but if you haven't figured out the taxes, you're going to get hammered. And so this makes it really, really a good thing.